Ladies and gentlemen, welcome starlings, I guess, to a brand new Stargirl review. Now this is for episode 4, titled Wildcat. I just got finished watching this episode. This is me recording this a couple of days before you guys are seeing it, and I wish I could upload this right now, just because, guess what, Baby Yoda? It was a good one. It was a good one. Now, I'm expecting some comments, though, in the comment section down below, that this episode may have felt a little bit slow. And whilst I do recognize that, I kind of knew this was coming. If you guys have been watching my review for Stargirl up until present day, I guess, so 4 episodes in now, you'll know that last week I said that I expect this episode to be kind of like a part 1 again to another part 2 of a story. For example, episode 1 was like a part 1, and then episode 2 kind of closed that with the defeat of Brainwave. Episode 3 was this somewhat in-between thing, establishing Icicle in present day and the Injustice Society of America, and now it's about recruiting the new JSA heroes, and we start with Wildcat. And even though this episode somewhat felt quite a bit slower compared to like the previous episodes of the season so far, I really enjoyed how innocently newbie this was. The way Stargirl is bringing about this whole adventurous theme and spirit to everything, and you guys know what I mean about that. I've praised this show and its vibes. So when we had Wildcat and Kourtney going around this episode, I was really thoroughly enjoying myself. It puts some other things on hold, like the Injustice Society and stuff, but it's still slowly but surely trickled those roots along for those stories to definitely pick up in the next episode. But I can't wait till more heroes start getting into the fold. But hey, I've been premising this review too much now. Let's get into the actual details. But if you guys go on to enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate a like, of course, and make sure you're subscribed for more Stargirl videos like this. And of course, for Baby Yoda, like the video. Otherwise he'll cry. If you don't like it, then you have to like it now, otherwise I won't save him. You see this, guys? You see this? You know where you can get this. The link's down below. So the very beginning of this episode essentially started with a 3-month flashback, and as this was Wildcat's episode, obviously it started off surrounding her, and it's more or less just explaining her situation to get you up to date with everything that's going on with her in present day. We know she kind of gets bullied around school, slut-shamed. She doesn't really seem to have any friends. We know that she used to be the girlfriend of Henry King Jr. So, you know, what happened there, and this essentially explains all of that. We saw various clips of her around school, like running for the student body council, whatever, and she was up against Cindy, who Cindy is just, her own other story, which we'll get into some other time. Unfortunately, Henry at the time wanted a certain pick from Yolanda, and it went south, and that's why not only the school kind of bullies her, but her own family has completely shamed her, and we get into that in this episode, and you really do feel sorry for her. So she's completely outcast. We're all brought up to speed. The only thing I will say about this beginning 3-month flashback is that all of it was a music montage. It felt like, you know, at the beginning it was working, but then, like, you know, 3 minutes in, or however long that montage was at the beginning, it was still blaring that music. I would have actually liked to have seen a bit of, I don't know, that cut out. I don't know, to me it just felt like that was going on a little bit too long. Now this brings me to present day with Stargirl. Kourtney, of course, as of when we saw her last, she was taking the heroes' artifacts or tools and suits and everything like that from the JSA HQ, so I was very eager to see what she was getting up to this episode, and it more or less started off right from that. She was looking at the hourglass from Hourman, even the lantern from Green Lantern, which seemed to be a little bit broken. She was just kind of trying to figure out what to do, and she even had the pen, which did a little evil gremlin laugh, but I found it hilarious how she completely disregarded it as being this very dangerous-esque thing that Pat warned her about, and she just put it in a little pencil pot. I was like, oh my god. That is just sat in a little pencil pot. But kind of going back to what I said earlier, I love the naivety to all of this. It really plays off very well. This doesn't always work in every single show, but I think the fact that Kourtney Whitmore is meant to be 15 years old here, same with Yolanda and everything else, it just works so well. Like, I don't find this cheesy. I don't find any of it cringy, as I usually would if they tried to put it in a show with a bit of a different premise, maybe if the characters are much older. Here, all of it is just believable. She's literally a kid, way out of her depth, trying to recruit JSA members with very, you know, powerful, and if in the wrong hands, dangerous, you know, artifacts, if you will, or tools from these former heroes. And we're just starting off with Wildcat this time. But anyway, love that scene with Kourtney. She wants to recruit heroes, but I understand Pat's perspective. He doesn't really want to drag anyone else into this because I'm kind of with him. I support Kourtney, but like, if you're on the very logical, rational side, maybe I'm just getting older now. I don't know. But, you know, I wouldn't want to recruit more people, especially kids, if the actual Justice Society of America couldn't stop the Injustice Society. And these are experienced heroes. Jay Garrick's Flash, Dr. Fate, Green Lantern, Hourman. There was so many. Hawkman, Hawkgirl. They could be out there because they could be resurrected, but you know what I mean? They failed. Like I said in last week's review, I actually can't wait to see how they pull it off. It's probably going to be very fluky, but at the same time, that won't stop Kourtney from, following her instincts, because she's very kind of impulsive, but, it's in a good way, even if it could be to a detriment sometimes. And this leads me over to the talk about the school stuff. Now, I'm going to talk more majoritively about all of this and then move on to the Pat stuff with William Zarek's wife and what went on there, because that was certainly quite an interesting mystery to leave off this episode, and then the Injustice Society stuff. So this is where Yolanda once again was getting shamed and bullied by frickin' Cindy. Freaking Cindy, screw you. Like, I love Kourtney sticking up for her, and it actually made me laugh when she was like, "You will never see me coming." This is where Kourtney more or less just comes out with everything off the bat. I guess she has, good instincts and she wants to trust them, but it was almost, I suppose you just have to put yourself in the minds of, this is a 15-year-old girl. She sees a good person in Yolanda, so she straight away says, "There's something going on in Blue Valley. I need your help with it." And she invited her to come over to dinner that night. She even tried to, but this is where we got an interesting kind of look at what our home life is like right now, and it completely contrasts the beginning montage that we saw, where everything was very so cheesy, like get your coffee cup, hey dad, like hey mom in the kitchen and stuff. Now everyone's just disgusted at the sight of her. So I kind of like this look at Yolanda's life, because not only is her life somewhat really lacking a lot of normalcy, like at school and kind of like pleasure and purpose, but also at home she feels unwelcome. So I like how this sort of propels her to like think, screw you, and I'm gonna try and see what Kourtney's on about anyway. And Kourtney managed to convince her to see what the staff and everything was about, because hey, they kind of bonded over her blowing up Henry's car. And at the same time, Yolanda also confided in Kourtney about the pictures that Henry shared, and I'm pretty sure it was Cindy though, wasn't it, because she saw the phone and she did it. Now, I'm very interested to see where, even though we didn't get a lot of Henry in this episode or last episode, is Brainwave Jr. gotta be bad? That's the question. I know Stargirl put her father in a coma, but I think he might be more of an anti-hero moving forward rather than a full-blown, straight-down-the-line villain. We're gonna have to wait and see there. But yet again, Stargirl's like, okay, so here's the cosmic staff. Like, we're getting the full debriefing now about everything. And Stargirl, of course, has to bring up, this used to belong to my dad. Because they're really drilling that in hard. I say this every week, but this is where something very interesting happened, and I don't know if any of you caught this, but when she said that the staff belonged to my dad, that the staff actually like resonated, blinked, and like sort of yippied up quickly. I took that as maybe it's like a little red herring, which I think a lot of people will write it off to be, but it still could pertain to a little bit of truth. So Sylvester is the latest Starman, right? And Kourtney Whitmore thinks that he was her father, which is probably not the case. I could be wrong about that, but there's a theory that lots and lots of people are talking about, that Ted Knight, the original Starman, the man who built the cosmic staff, and I've mentioned this in my last review, what if the reason why when Kourtney said, the staff belonged to my father, and the staff responded, is because that's true, but not Sylvester, the previous Starman, but the original one. We don't really know what happened to him in this world. Pat Dukin did say at the end of episode 2, I believe it was, that staff was built by Ted Knight, but that's a story for another time. So I'm thinking that could be very intricately and very sneakily woven into this storyline through moments like this with the staff responding, because the staff's like, yeah, you're right, but not the guy you're actually thinking about. It's not Sylvester. It's actually the original guy. Now we're moving on to probably my favorite parts in the episode, and I'm guessing quite a lot of your guys' favorite parts. And that is when, Kourtney, yet again, the word here for this episode was wonderful noobiness. That's 2 words, but you know what I mean. Yolanda's like, I look ridiculous in this, but that's when the suit did this kind of form-fitting little thing where, like, obviously it was like really baggy because the original Wildcat wasn't exactly a teenage girl, but I loved that almost kind of moment where the blue little, I don't know, technology weaving thing happened, and it just put it very form-fitting to her, and she looks really, really good. Now, there is one thing I will say about the Wildcat suit. Whilst I absolutely love it, I really do, all DC Universe show suits are incredible. They really are. The Arrowverse took kind of like 7 years, maybe 5 years for some other suits to look decent. DC Universe, like the Robin suit in Titans, everything like that. Nailed it out the goddamn gate. And same with this. The only thing I think is a little bit weird, and this is just from promo material. It looked a lot better in the episode. I'll give it that. Let me know if any of you guys feel the same way here. But I felt like the Wildcat cowl, the cheeks are a little bit too emphasized on. I don't know. I just feel like they look a little bit like, not cheesy. I don't know the right word I'm looking for. But I didn't feel that as much in this episode. But what I will say is that that's the only part I'm slightly iffy on. But it still looks great. Everything else looks great. The cowl still looks good, but I'm just slightly off about it. I love how they looked on Wikipedia, and they were looking at the powers of Wildcat and experimenting, like bringing the claws out, slicing through a toaster. A lot of this at the same time felt like it was almost going too quickly, but at the same time, if you also brought this into real life almost, and how they're just excited sort of new JSA teenagers, it makes sense, like, because all of a sudden she was debriefing her about Icicle, the Injustice Society, and how Icicle killed her dad. Brainwave is Henry's dad, but that makes sense to Yolanda, considering that she was Henry Jr.'s boyfriend. So they were straight away like, hey, let's go into Brainwave's actual floor, which is the 7th floor, and this added some more experimentation with the suit, because she can get the claws out and start climbing up the building, and this provided for some awesome moments. I still like how scattered amongst these scenes and episodes even, it shows the absolute naivety of just Stargirl in general in being a hero, because she was about to turn off the power to the hospital, yet the staff tried to stop her, as well as Yolanda, by pointing out that you do realize the powers, you know, life support machines, and she didn't think that. So if she would have done that, you could only imagine the hell that would have broke loose. Now, I didn't know how I felt about this next part. It's kind of controversial for me, because I'm trying to put my head in this space, and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I can't help it. So this is where Yolanda, or Wildcat, we're just going to say Wildcat from now on, was in the same room as Brainwave and Henry Jr., because he was, you know, there with his dad. And she had to, like, you know, go up behind him, get her claws out, and she was about to strike him. Now, we know that what that would have done. It would have tore through human skin and bone. I mean, it tears through metal. I just don't know if I like these situations presented, because when a character like this is literally about to get ready and murder someone, granted, I know what she's been through, it's just, I'm not sure whether to believe it or not. And I'm not sure if that then has an impact on taking me out of the episode slightly. I just want to be honest here. Sometimes this doesn't even affect people at all, but moments like this where I just don't know if I would believe Yolanda would do that, it's kind of like, did you have to show it? This is where somebody arrives who we have seen before, but you may or may not know who it is. But you may have figured it out if you know a bit about like your comic logic or comic book resourcefulness and Injustice Society villains. So this is where Principal Anaya Bowen arrives, and she plays the violin or fiddle, depends what way you play it, I guess, to Brainwave. Now, what do you think she could have been doing? Now, I was expecting a bit more of like a projection maybe off the violin, and why, you may be asking. That is Stargirl's iteration of the fiddler, who is linked with the Injustice Society, and I'm guessing she was trying to like telepathically through the fiddle itself communicate with Brainwave, perhaps through like musical mind control or the hypersonic waves coming off of her fiddle. Kind of like how Stargirl and Yolanda don't necessarily know that she's the fiddler. However, in this episode, there were a couple of moments, for also Pat as well, where they're definitely on their radar now. Like, they're not just going to forget that the principal went into Henry King's, Brainwave's room and played a random ass fiddle. Like, they're definitely she's probably going to tell Pat about this next episode, and they're going to put it together. But we know it's the fiddler. I don't believe it's the actual fiddler, the cliche one from the comics, but it's like a version of, like, different characters, different iterations. Like, for example, I believe the fiddler is Isaac Bowen, who is the son of the lady we saw in this episode, but I'm guessing in this episode, or just this continuity, it's Anaya. Now, scattered around all of these scenes we're talking about, we also had Beth Chapel, who will be the new Dr. Midnight, and I can't wait to see what's coming from her, but she had this moment in the episode where she saw Stargirl and Wildcat climbing up the roof even further, the walls, and she recognized Yolanda, at least. Maybe not Stargirl, I believe it was just Yolanda. So I'm thinking this spells out that she might be next in terms of recruitment, but I wouldn't be surprised, instead of maybe dedicating a whole episode, they might do Hourman and Beth Chapel taking up their mantles. But as for the rest of this, Yolanda did go home after saying that she couldn't be Wildcat until she tried to be herself again. She went back and even said that to her parents. She's not got to apologize anymore. She's been punished enough. And I really thought that it was going to be a cliche, okay, you know what, you have a point. But no, they rubbed it in even harder and says you disgraced us and our family. So that just propelled her even more to be like, you know what? I'm taking on the mantle of Wildcat. This is a chance for her to live. I love how she decided to suit up. And so she officially takes up the mantle. And yeah, I guess it's on to Beth Chapel and Our Man next. And who knows? Could we get, I'm still curious about that lantern and the Thunderbolt pen. What's going on with that? Maybe season 2? Maybe this season? Now let's talk about the other side of things this episode. We had some things with Pat. I felt very bad for William Zarek's, the wizard's wife last episode and how it just ended off with her. She's lost her whole family. But things get even more mental this episode. It seems like fairly some casual scenes as we go throughout the episode, but it really does start to amount up and also link in with what I said earlier with how Kourtney now knows about the principal maybe being a bit shady, and as we know is the fiddler. But this is where Pat was starting to link together some things to do with William Zarek being the wizard, because this is where his wife needed some help with a car and Pat was helping putting that together. Inside was Joey's belongings, who just wanted to be like a father, wearing the wizard hat. And I thought Pat was going to put it together in that moment. Maybe he did, and it just wasn't said outright. But maybe he did it. I just felt like it was very obvious. But I think what he took away from that is, there's definitely something more going on here. And I'm not really entirely sure what's going on with her and what she knows and how, did she meet Zarek after he decided to, be a bit more low-key as an Injustice Society villain? He ran past her with the wand the last episode, went after Icicle. And it seems that she does know some things because she warned Pat saying there's something going wrong with this town. He just had an appointment with his doctor. There's no way this was a heart attack, so she thinks something else happened. That says to me that she just doesn't trust the town. There's no way he had a heart attack. That doesn't mean she knows about the Injustice Society stuff. So I have a little theory that the family has no idea about his Injustice Society links. And, to be fair, he did completely keep that buried compared to the other villains in the Injustice Society. But this is when, right at the end of the episode, Pat went to that junkyard, and that's when the Black Cat appears, who is the wizard's Black Cat, and he finds William Zarek's wife's car, all completely messed up with, Joey's belongings in there, the hat, and he knows that she's probably been addressed. Maybe Icicle sent someone after her to clean up some loose ends, if you know what I mean. He knows now to look into this even further, and he'll probably realize that, lo and behold, hey, the wizard's dead. What is going on? But it looks like the Zarek family is now well and truly over. I have to assume that she is dead. Now, this brings me to the last final part of the episode where we had a little Injustice Society moment, and this was really, really cool, actually. It was very brief, very, very brief, but we got introduced to another character who may have seen in one of the best trailers for Stargirl, and that is Dragon King, where he hisses out in one of the trailers, and Stargirl and Wildcat just scream, which I can't wait for that scene to actually come, maybe in the next couple of episodes. But ultimately the scene continues with Icicle going to the Injustice Society lair, and he bumps into Dragon King, who says initially that in the beginning I didn't understand why you brought them together, meaning all of these villains, and formed this group. And he says, but now I see the light. I believe in the Injustice Society of America more than any of the others, and I'll never betray you, not like the Shade. And that was a little bit of tea for the Injustice Society. So not all members. There's been a bit of drama in the past where it seems that the Shade has splintered off. Icicle actually wants to complete his machine, give him the resources to do that, and how maybe he disagreed before, but whatever Dragon King is building here is useful to Project New America. But also he said another thing, and he says that he's been working on his daughter. Now, for those of you who know, you know. But I still don't want to give it away, but you should be able to put 2 and 2 together now. But another very interesting thing is when Dragon King says, may I have his body? Because, Dragon King wants the wizard's body, and actually detailed how the wizard was particularly vile to Dragon King when he first came to Blue Valley. So what the hell T is going on? Okay, I'm going to stop saying T. But yeah, there's a beef. With villainous organizations, there's always going to be a bit of clashing. I can't wait to see how Dragon King comes into this, because even though he says, I will never betray, I'm always loyal, I think he has quite a bit of his own agenda here in the long run. But that is actually the extent of what we got from Jordan/Icicle and the Injustice Society. But I like how they still included it, because they want you to know, even though this is Wildcat's episode, we're getting the new Justice Society of America formed. There's still stuff cooking with the other plots, and overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It was definitely a bit of a pace change, but not an unwelcome one. It was still very pleasant and enjoyable to watch. I like Yolanda Montez. I really do. I think she fits in the... This is something I was worried about. So far, I really enjoyed the show. Love Kourtney Whitmore. Love her relationship and dynamic with Pat. Stripe. It was all going well. Love the casting for Icicle. I love all of that. But hey, we've still got other core characters to meet, and you know, that could really maybe rub some of us up the wrong way if we didn't like them. But I'm happy to say that Yolanda as Wildcat is a very welcome addition to the cast of this show, for me at least. I really liked her from what we saw in this episode. So honestly guys, massive thumbs up for me this week for Stargirl episode 4. I really appreciate your support on these reviews. I love having discussions with you, so I will be reading every single one of your comments down in the comment section. So yeah, let me know everything, all your theories. Other than that, join my Discord server. You can talk to me in voice chat there personally. I do have Twitter where I'm very active, Instagram, Patreon where you can support the channel more, and a join button on the channel itself. Really appreciate if you check those things out, as they really do help provide support for me making content on this channel. But as always everyone, really appreciate you stopping by today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you starlings in the next video. Goodbye.